In today's news, a BVICCHA requests meeting with police chief and chairman of Crime Stoppers.
We also see the National Sustainable Development Plan moving forward, and they are now soliciting the public's input as we move forward.
Vaccines are now mandatory for Turks and Caicos with work permit holders, and of course we continue to follow the Commission of Inquiry here in the BVI. They are holding their first hearings. All this and so much more when 284 News returns.
Hello viewers and welcome. Welcome to 284 News. It is Monday, April 26th, 2021. My name is Javon Wilson.
And I'm Ron Grant. It's always our pleasure coming to you live and direct from Tortola in the beautiful British Virgin Islands, our home, our paradise. Before we get into today's newscast, just touching on a few summary items. Of course, our leaders aren't doing enough to encourage public to take vaccines, says the health minister here in the BVI. And Territorial at-large representative Neville Sheep-Smith says firms should stop favoring expat lawyers over local ones. In addition, the government announces cost policies for Work in Paradise program, and VI's Rosewood Little Dix Bay recognized on Travel Leisure's top 2021 list, which we're so proud of. We're going to get into all this and so much more.
Absolutely. We're going to jump straight into it. Now, the government of the Virgin Islands is currently engaging stakeholders in a series of public consultations on the National Sustainable Development Plan for the British Virgin Islands. Now, the plan promises to focus on the long-term vision for the territory, and that is within a 15-year period. And of course, this is a framework that the public has definitely been calling for to guide not only the economic but also the environmental and social development of this territory. Today, viewers, we had the honor of sitting down with some of the visionaries that are guiding the process. We spoke to lead consultant Dr. June Sumer, who says that the plan builds on some of the framework that was already set in place from a previous blueprints. So if you're yet to listen in on that interview, let's watch. Also mentioned that we are not only now starting the plan. You mentioned we are really picking up from a blueprint that was put together years ago. So can you expand on that a little bit more for us, please?
Well, in the late 1990s, early 20s, the Virgin Islands had developed a national integrated development plan. I think that was done by Mr. Otto O'Neill.
Okay.
And it was a very comprehensive plan. And apart from that plan, and I think that's the only overarching plan that has been done for the territory before, but quite apart from that, there are many sector plans, like the Blue Economy Plan, the Physical Development Plan, etc. And so we are not trying to reinvent the wheel. What we are trying to do is to ensure that all of these plans fit into this National Sustainable Development Plan, looking at the gaps that exist, recalling, of course, that the plan will be based on the Sustainable Development Goals developed by the United Nations, but it will be more than that, and we'll say a little more about that later because we have already met some of these goals and we want to be able to surpass them as a territory.
Excellent. Now, Ms. Johnson, that was Dr. Sumer, the consultant who is actually leading this project. Now, though not a government-guided project, public officials will continue to weigh into the conversation. We also spoke to, like you saw, Ms. Packley Johnson, the Development Cooperation Consultant in the Premier's office, as well as Mr. Emery Pemberton, well known as Che. He is the economist out of the Ministry of Finance, who also made very valuable contributions in today's discussion. Listening to us about the role you will be playing and how framing that will be as it relates to going through with this plan.
Yes, thanks, Siobhan. We work as a team, so I'm representing the Premier's office, but we're working together primarily to, at least at this stage, to get as much information as we can from the public. So we have started our public sector stakeholder engagement. So we really want to accomplish a few things, determining what persons have as a vision for their particular sector or for the territory as a whole, as well as we want to identify what sort of challenges they're experiencing in the BVI, whether it's from an individual basis, a community basis, a sectoral basis, because we really want to ensure that the plan, we have a proper analysis of where we're at now so that we can really chart forward in terms of where we need to go with concrete solutions. So the key thing here is that the plan, as Dr. Suma said, is something that is going to be developed with the input from everyone. So from various sector experts, from the public sector, from the private sector, from the civil society, from the community, and very importantly, by the youth.
I love that, and a great segue into my next question for Che. Now, Che, I know you are lending your economic background, to the conversation, but really also representation for the younger people in the territory. How important is it for you to have a seat at this table in that representation, but also what are you hoping to achieve through your personal and professional contributions?
Well, thanks, Jovan, for the question. And first, I'll talk about my role. Coming from the Ministry of Finance, there has been some work that we have done previously to prepare us for a moment like this. We are not starting from ground zero as we look at the SDGs in terms of implementation. The SDGs will lay the foundation for our national sustainable development plan. But within the Ministry of Finance, we have already done some groundwork to see how such a plan or such a broad framework can actually fit the institution of government that we have within the BVI. So we've already done some analysis in looking at the structure of government and how do these roles actually fit the BVI context. So we had some of that conversation already and done the preparatory work so that when a plan is created, we know exactly how it can be implemented and also executed by not just the government, but also we see how we can partner with private sector and non-profit organization as well. So we see where everyone comes in. And now I can also talk about the youth, where this is a plan where within 15 years we can all think about where are we going to be. And as Dr. Suma says, she's here to help make the plan, but as the youth, we will be living the plan. So we think about where we will be 15 years from now. We went to the primary school, we talked to some young students in Virgin Gorda, and they could already say that within 15 years, they'll be 26 or they'll be in their 30s, which is where I'm at right now. So they get to also contribute as to where the BVI would be within the next 15 years and how they can contribute now, so that even their views can make a difference to children in primary schools and high schools. So we get to really redefine what does education mean, for example. So we really need the youth participation.
Now, viewers, the team plans to continue to meet with various stakeholders, of course, to gain a better understanding of the industry needs. That consultation will be finalized in May with an objective to have the first draft of the plan ready by June of this year. Dr. Sumer also mentioned that this plan will eventually be presented in the House of Assembly to cement the plan's legitimacy so that the plan is applied and will be able to transcend different governments. I think quite an enlightening conversation earlier today. And I think something that the public definitely needs to pay attention to, Ron. We have a deep tendency to voice our opinions, be very vocal when it comes to especially policies.
Yes.
We're very critical. And I think this is a fair opportunity and a great opportunity, that is, for the persons to aptly lend their voices to the conversation, to a plan that will guide the development of the BVI for the next 15 years.
I could not agree with you more. Sustainable development is something that we've talked about, and I think it's about high time we see it move towards some level of fruition. Continuing on the local scene, the BVI Chamber of Commerce and Hotel Association is deeply concerned about the increase in criminal activity in our community, particularly those targeting businesses in the past few months. The Chamber has extended its condolences to the family and of the business owner who recently lost their life, and extends support to all other owners who have been affected by the crime in some way. Now, Chairman Mrs. Shayna Smith Archer indicated that the Chamber has requested a meeting with the Commissioner of Police and the Chairman of the Crime Stoppers Unit to discuss solutions to empower businesses to really secure themselves and the support, businesses need from law enforcement. She said, and I quote, "It is especially unnerving that these thefts and robberies have involved gun violence. Crime is terrible in our community, and we want the Virgin Islands to remain a safe place to live, work, and do business, and we need to safeguard that by any means necessary." Now, the Chamber notes that the business community is already facing unprecedented hardship in an economic recession, and of course the growing cost of doing business. Now they have to again be further stressed with worries about keeping their employees and customers safe from criminal activity. Business owners have also expressed anxiety about the ripple effect on the tourism sector because visitors need to feel that the Virgin Islands remains a safe place to visit. Now, of course, the BVICCHA implores anyone who has information that could help the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force solve these crimes to really contact their unit at 311 and stay tuned, of course, to the BVICCHA's website at bviccha.org for more information. Jovan, the issue of crime has continued to be a conversation. We see more and more agencies lending their voices and coming on the train to really lend support towards the business community. One of the things that I don't think we've been speaking about enough is really the cause for the criminal activity. Our borders have been closed. We have faced a really stringent economic period, and the BVI has for a very long time been known to be a very safe place. But I, needless to say, need to remind us that that is particularly because it has for a long time been a very wealthy place, and we have not seen this level of economic strain as we are experiencing now in the past. And I think we, while not condoning any of it whatsoever, any of this criminal activity, need to pay some attention to the causes and the true ripple effect that the economic strain has had on our territory, and really pay attention to it.
Absolutely, and Ron, like you said, we have not seen brazen crime on this magnitude in our history, I believe, as we reflect on the trajectory of the BVI. And you are absolutely right. We have to take into consideration the economic fallout that has impacted not just the businesses, but persons' lives and their livelihoods. And a lot of persons are turning to crime. A lot of persons have to still continue to feed their family and keep food on the table. And unfortunately, this is the level of desperation that we're seeing. It's unfortunate that as a community, though, we are allowing ourselves to go to the extent of killing, of gunning down persons in the community. I mean, robbing is one thing. Killing somebody is something completely different. And the members of the BVICCHA are correct in saying that this does tarnish the reputation of the BVI, the bread and butter that we all collectively depend on. So we want to be very careful and fully take responsibility for the roles that we are playing. But we're trusting that the police can get this under control.
Most definitely. Viewers, still ahead, Commission of Inquiry to hold first hearings, and we have so much more as the COVID-19 vaccines are now mandatory for work permit holders in the Turks and Caicos. All this and so much more when 284 News returns.
The win.
What the hell?
I'm freaking out.
Different is about these people.
It's always a pleasure coming to you live and direct from the
What's poppin', what's really good?
Davis has won it for the Lakers.
Viewers, welcome back to 284 News. Now, as we pan across the region, the governor of Turks and Caicos has announced that the COVID-19 vaccine will now be mandatory for residents of Turks and Caicos who are on work permits. Now, persons who, by choice, elect not to receive a COVID-19 vaccine will not, I repeat, will not have their annual work permits renewed and will be required to leave the islands. Now, all residents, adults in Turks and Caicos are eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine free of charge. And of course, there is a portal to register for those vaccines. As of the 18th of April 2021, just about 15,674 people have been vaccinated in the Turks and Caicos against the virus with at least one dose. This is approximately 35% of the total population. Now, viewers, the Turks and Caicos began vaccinating its population against coronavirus back in January, on the 11th. Now, Governor Nigel Dakin and the then Premier, Charlene Cartwright Robinson, were amongst the first to receive the vaccine in an effort to encourage persons to take it. Now, the initial batch of 9,750 doses of the Pfizer and BioNTech coronavirus COVID-19 vaccines was enough to vaccinate just about 4,875 people, which is approximately 11% of their population. And that arrived in the country back in January, the 7th of January, that is, of this year via the London to I apologize. Their British Airways flight, that is. Now, the Turks and Caicos government accepted the offer of the United Kingdom's offer for doses of the vaccine back in November 2020, shortly before it received the regulatory approval for the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency in the United Kingdom. Turks and Caicos, along with the Cayman Islands and Bermuda, were the only British overseas territory at that time in the Caribbean to receive that initial batch of vaccines from the UK. This was attributed to Turks and Caicos having the required infrastructure to maintain the vaccine, which, of course, as we know, requires cooling to a negative 70 degrees Celsius, and of course distribute it effectively. The governor, on the 23rd of December back in 2020, announced the details on who would be vaccinated first. The first priority group would be the elderly, healthcare workers, and those with underlying medical conditions, and residents and workers at long-term care facilities. This would be followed by frontline workers at an increased risk. However, on the 22nd of April 2021, just last week, the governor announced that persons on work permits who, by choice, decide not to take the COVID-19 vaccine will not have their work permits renewed and will be asked to leave the islands.
Wow. Stringent measures for very serious times.
Very interesting. I call it the catch-22 because while like Turks and Caicos, like the BVI, many countries across the region, the vaccine remains non-mandatory and of course delivered and administered on a voluntary basis. What we're seeing is essentially leaders making it difficult for you to have a livelihood because now if you are on a work permit, and a lot of these economies, a lot of these countries, these destinations have a high number of expatriates working in the tourism industry. And similarly, like here in the BVI, I think it's quite interesting to see how governments are using the vaccines and really levying that against the need to get persons vaccinated. And I think some may call it very unfair, especially in these times where the tourism industry is suffering and persons within that industry have been disadvantaged for at least a year.
I think the move by the Turks and Caicos is one that comes, just like you said, it's a catch phrase where we really have to look at the desperation and how territories and economies are navigating their way through these times. And while it is mandatory, the choice is being taken away from many persons to have that choice. And some would call it unfortunate, while others are deeming it what's necessary to move their economies forward. In line with the Commissioner's intention that the COI should operate in as flexible a manner as possible, and given the need to maintain its progress, the Commissioner intends to begin hearings here in Rotown in the week commencing May 3rd. Of course, over the recent weeks, the Commission of Inquiry that we all all know of, has sent out letters of request seeking information and documents relevant to its terms and reference. These requests continue, whilst the requests have resulted in many documents being lodged with the COI, for which the Commissioner is grateful. He considers the hearings are now required to facilitate the prompt and full production of relevant information of documents. Now, that will be the purpose of the initial hearings, which are therefore likely to be short and conducted in private, so as to ensure that the documents and information that cannot at present be disclosed in public and can securely be provided to the COI. Now, however, mindful of the need for openness where possible, following each hearing, he will give directions for any publicity of that hearing that he considers appropriate. Now, the first summons requiring a respondent to appear before the Commissioner for examination on oath or affirmation and to provide information was issued late last week on Friday. The Commissioner expects that further hearings will be necessary over the coming weeks. The COI will issue further press notices, they say, as necessary to update the public as to the timeable and nature of future hearings. Now, the COI rules dealing with matters of evidence and procedure and 2 further protocols, one concerning applications for legal representation and the other for witness expenses, were published by the Commissioner on April 13, 2020. The rules will assist all those who may be involved in the COI. Now, the 2 protocols give guidances and guidelines as to the process by which the Commissioner will consider applications to be represented by counsel and claims for appropriate witness expenses, which include any fees and expenses incurred by a person in respect of legal representation or advice. Now, the public can be found the COI website on bvi.public.inquiry.uk. Now, the Commissioner continues to once again encourage anyone who believes that they have information that may assist the inquiry who has not yet done so to submit that to the COI. Jovan, as we continue to closely monitor, that is, the Commission of Inquiry that is being conducted here in the territory of the Virgin Islands, it is quite interesting the level of haste that it is being handled with, of course, with the team being in the territory and conducting that with the haste that they think is necessary. We continue to monitor both on the local scene and on the UK scene the action. One of the things that we see here is that there was a statement that was issued by the COI basically outlining and saying that information which received, whether it is what we call propaganda or facts, could be used in the COI. And I think at this point it is important for us to now consider the legal ramifications and to get some experts in from the legal side to really break down how the COI will work, because I do think based on the information that has been receiving, there is some sort of an advantage as it pertains to the UK and the conducting of the COI based on the information. So I think it's important that we continue to follow this and look into it a lot more, but it's definitely cause for concern as we continue to traverse throughout the territory. One of the things that the Premier of the Virgin Islands, in his very brief and short and precise response to a question, said that he does truly hope that the BVI and the territory will have a fair experience. And I think overall, while the territory of the Virgin Islands and the residents believe that the COI is important, many of the legislators have called for it, believe it or not. Honorable Premier
openly
embraced while on the opposition. Many of the times he was on the opposition, spoke of the possibility of wanting to request a COI. Now that's been done, we see a different tone from the government. But at the end of the day, I do think it's important for us to have a fair process, and that's important.
I absolutely agree with you, Ron. One of the things the Premier also initially called for, and it was very possible based on the protocols that are being followed under a Commission of Inquiry, is for the public hearing of this Commission of Inquiry. And I think it really would build some confidence in the community, because if we are to reflect on just even how the Commission of Inquiry was launched by former Governor Jasper, there were lots of questions about, whether it was an attempt to cause a stain on the territory. And so we have to continue to examine these things. And like you said, one of the questions we did reach out to the Commissioner himself in the earliest to ask is, how do you then dictate which which concerns, which complaints submitted, which
Correct.
of these are legitimate and which are not. And he said, well, it will be based on the commissioner's discretion. And that could be a very tricky thing.
And seems very biased.
Right, depending on which side of the coin you're leaning on.
Yes.
So it's very interesting. And I do believe, like you said, we need to continue to seek legal counsel. The Premier and the government of the Virgin Islands has launched what is called the RIU. And that is, of course, receiving independent legal counsel from... I apologize, I don't remember what his name is, but we are
A UK
seeking,
firm.
Sorry, from the
Yes.
United Kingdom as well. So we're trusting that that is enough because like Turks and Caicos in the past, the BVI could end up in some hot water, and that
Absolutely.
wouldn't lean towards government or opposition. That would be a ripple effect on all of us.
Agreed.
Viewers, we're going to go to a quick commercial break, but when we come back, the prisoners in St. Vincent, as this volcano continues to erupt, they are now being considered, some of them, for compassionate release. And of course, we are still getting into the details of the fact that this volcano, is still very, very much dangerous. So we want to get into all the details when we return.
Gentlemen, aspiring gentlemen, and our partners that hold us down. It's season 2 of The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman, taking you on the most inspiring journey with the best and brightest distinguished gentlemen of the BVI. Raw, real-life lessons that translate to grounded, community-minded, well-rounded men like you've never seen them before. Governor Augustus J.U. Jaspert, Jovan Klein, Neil Klein, and so much more. Turning modern-day men into 21st century distinguished gentlemen with yours truly, Ron Grant, a 284 Media production. Is business slow? Cash flow down? Hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media@cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
Viewers, welcome back to 284 News. Now we're continuing to monitor what's happening on the ground in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And as of reports today, at least 10% of the prison population over there could be granted compassionate release. Now, the Mercy Committee in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is to deliberate on the matter later this week. But Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves made the announcement as he stood at the gates of the Belle Isle prison with a cluster of media and security personnel just yesterday. Prime Minister Gonsalves said, and I quote, "I've requested a list from the superintendent of prisons of persons with some minor offenses and people who haven't paid a fine and, who might have been there, who we can release, and a couple of people who are inside for maintenance, for example, like child welfare monies and those kind of things. So I'm trying to see if I could organize that for later this week to have a meeting with the Committee of Mercy," the Prime Minister said. Now, when asked to quantify the list of persons to be released, Prime Minister Gonsalves replied, and I quote, "It wouldn't be a significant number. I would say across the population of 400, it might be about 50 or 40 from the list, which I did a rough cursory analysis. It shouldn't be a lot. The Committee of Mercy on these things is usually very, very conservative." At the same time, Gonsalves said that the prisoners are coping very well under the circumstances. He said, and I quote, "There are contingency plans if we reach at this stage with relation to moving persons from here at this point. That has not arisen. The superintendent reported to me that the prisoners have been very cooperative in this matter," end of quote. Now, viewers, meanwhile, we do see the seismic activity at the Le Frere has remained low since the tremor associated with the explosion and ash venting around noon of April 22nd. In the last 24 hours, only a few long-period hybrid and volcanic tectonic earthquakes have been recorded. However, the volcano continues to erupt and is still very dangerous. And of course, viewers, remains in the red. the red alert level, that is. We continue to keep our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent in our
Indeed.
prayers, wishing them all the best as we continue to send the much needed help. But viewers, for now, that is all the time we have. My name is Javon Wilson.
And I'm Ron Grand. Have a good rest of the day. Happy Monday. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.